Good morning, gang. Happy Wednesday morning. Okay, yesterday turned out to be a political roller coaster for everybody. Today's not going to be a whole lot different. Today's Liberation Day. I'll probably talk about that around lunchtime because we're not going to know anything really until late this afternoon. But I want to kind of go through what happened yesterday and some of the stuff you may know, some of the stuff you may not, but it's just kind of funny. We are seeing more and more the political divide in the country. And I mean, it's not getting any better, trust me. So yesterday we had some special elections. And really not surprisingly, the Republicans held on to both seats that were up for special election in Florida. Okay, so for the House of Representatives. Okay, that's a good thing. Not a big surprise. So Florida stays a solid red state. Good. It should. Common sense prevails. Wisconsin, on the other hand, confuses the hell out of everybody. But if anything was telling, if you take a step past the immediate yesterday in Wisconsin, Wisconsin told the country yesterday how bad of a candidate Kamala Harris was for president, okay? And hear me out on this one. So as I mentioned yesterday, and most of you guys know, yesterday was the election for the new Wisconsin State Supreme Court Justice. And the liberal, Susan Crawford, won overwhelmingly. I mean, by about 10 points to the tune of about 250,000 votes, okay? So Wisconsin overwhelmingly decided we want a liberal court. They overwhelmingly decided we want redistricting in Wisconsin so we can put more Democrats in the House of Representatives from our state. That's what they said, okay? So they want more Democrats, they want a liberal court, but they didn't vote for the liberal candidate for president. That'll tell you what Wisconsinites thought about Kamala Harris, how bad she was. That they want liberalism, but Donald Trump was still a better choice than Kamala Harris. Don't ever let me hear, oh, the people that voted for Harris were anti-Trump. No, a lot of people that voted for Trump weren't pro-Trump. They were anti-Harris. And Wisconsin proved that yesterday. However, this is where I say it's who knows what's going on up there. Second part. Wisconsin also overwhelmingly, by about 2-1, passed a voter ID law. They already had voter ID, but now you have to prove citizenship in Wisconsin to vote. That's a huge win for the GOP. It's a huge win for the country, too. So you start looking at what they're doing. And I mean, Wisconsin is a purple state. We all know that, okay? I mean, there's Milwaukee and Madison are so blue, you know, a nice spring sky doesn't look as blue. A lot of the rest of the state, not all of it, okay, is pretty red. Typical. I mean, Green Bay's kind of a flip. You know, some of the stuff up north is a little blue, but okay, you know, around the Canadian border, you know, where they get influenced by the idiot liberals that live up there. But so Wisconsin kind of goes both ways on all of this. Okay. Now we got to deal with the fallout, because this tells everybody that the next time we have redistricting, Wisconsin's going to flip more blue. I hope the Republicans are paying attention, because they will lose a couple of seats in Wisconsin, so they got to pick up a couple more just to maintain that slim majority they have. Because if Trump loses this majority that he has right now in both houses, ever so slim that it is, you have gridlock. He gets nothing done. Congress will not do a Democrat ruling by one vote or by one member will never get anything passed. I mean, the Democrats are typical lockstep lemmings, whatever dear leader, in this case Hakeem Jeffries, tells them to do, they'll do. I mean, you're very rarely do you ever see a Democrat break from the party and say, gee, you know what, I'm going to vote common sense rather than I'm going to do what I'm told. I keep getting money as long as I do what I'm told. So like I said yesterday, there aren't a whole lot of politicians who vote in the country's best interest. They're all voting in their own best interest. But those were crazy things. But then you get into what's going on now today. Well, what's going on today that was affected somewhat by what was said yesterday. It's kind of interesting. Some of the talking points. Maryland, state of, now has a bill that is going to the governor's desk, Democrat, to consider paying reparations. Right? Here we go with this crap again. Maryland is deep in the red. They don't have any money. And now they want to join California, Illinois, New York, Massachusetts. Notice what those states have in common about paying reparations to people that were never slaves and collecting that money from people that never owned slaves. But for some reason, at least I can't speak for you, I can speak for me. My money, the money I earn from my job, has to go to pay somebody, even though my family wasn't even here when slavery was involved. But okay, so this is what's going on. So yesterday on The View, everybody's favorite circular firing squad, where, we try to, their programming manager tries to get the dumbest people in the country to sit down and talk for an hour with 5 of the dumbest women in the country. They brought in Elie Mystal. If you know who he is, he's a political operative. This is the guy who's got, white hair, looks like a mushroom on the top of his head. He is an uber racist. This is the guy who, comes out and says that the country wouldn't exist because blacks invented everything, yada, yada, yada. Okay. The guy's completely delusional. And I got a kick out of what he said yesterday, because he got on the show and said that all the rules, all the laws that were made pre-1965, okay, everything after the Civil Rights Act of 1964, that's okay. But the stuff that was made Civil Rights Act of 1964 should all be declared unconstitutional. Why the hell should he listen to a bunch of old white men and laws that they made? Okay. And I saw this and I'm going, this is a guy who is well known, is on MSNBC and CNN all the time, is brought onto The View, and he's out there saying that the 13th Amendment should be declared unconstitutional, so slavery should never have been abolished. Or the 15th Amendment should be considered unconstitutional, so blacks shouldn't have the right to vote, I guess. Or Brown versus Board of Education, that was 1954, that should be unconstitutional. That ended segregation. Yo, rocket scientist, you're an idiot, okay? Those were all things that old white men in politics, I still challenge you to find me any women, any minorities that were in government pre-1954 in Brown versus Board of Education, made that were to your benefit. Shall we take a look at which party pushed those laws through? I'll give you a hint. It wasn't the Democrat, liberal, progressive, socialist, communist, whatever the hell you want to call yourself this week, party, okay? Even the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a Republican act that the Democrats fought tooth and nail against. It amazes me the stupidity of people. But you need to pay attention to this because the lemmings, the sheep, okay, the ones that'll do whatever they're told, that don't have the ability of independent thought, listen to this crap. And they get a soapbox to go talk about it. And you had all these, the cackling hens on YouTube go, yeah, bobbleheads, agreeing. Not thinking, not going through what I just said. I mean, those are the big ones. Those aren't even the small ones in the way of laws that have been made. But this is what the liberal left follows. This is why you have all these Tesla attacks. They don't think. We have free speech. We have the right to protest. Yes, you do. Absolutely. But you also have to face the consequences for what you say. Oh, we forgot about that part. Don't know what that means. Okay. There was a story of a guy, I forget what state he was in here, who was arrested yesterday because he was throwing screws and nails into parking spots or people's driveways of Trump supporters. Said he was in a store and heard some lady mention that she supported Trump, that she was conservative. So he went out to the parking lot and threw a bunch of screws and nails under her car tires. And then he was going through neighborhoods and doing the same in driveways. Then he went out to, this was funny, then he went out to parking lots and threw screws and nails into parking spaces that looked like conservatives would park in. Really, so now parking spots have a political affiliation. Got it. Okay. This is the mentality of the people we're dealing with, people. That they are completely unhinged, completely stupid, and it ain't getting any better. And when you get situations yesterday, for example, Hakeem Jeffries again, on the floor of the House, talked for over 25 hours. He talked for it was the longest filibuster in the history of Congress. He beat the previous record that was held by Strom Thurmond. I figured it was appropriate. That was one avowed racist beating a record of another avowed racist. Okay, so we got it. But Hakeem Jeffries was in there talking about how gas prices are up. No. How egg prices are up. No. How the Trump administration is trying to end Social Security and Medicare. No. Okay. 25 hours of lies. But the problem is the media will go talk about how courageous he was and how he put the people ahead of himself. He didn't eat. He didn't go to the bathroom for 25 hours. I guarantee you he had Depends on. Okay. But how courageous it was of him to do this, to stand and lie for 25 hours. But no, they wouldn't call those lies, not by a long shot. This was their marching orders. Believe what I say. I'm CNN. I'm the all-powerful. Right? Okay. We still have way too many stupid sheep, stupid lemmings who will do whatever, who don't think, who don't listen. I mean, honestly, in this day and age, how many people don't think that you aren't on camera 100 times a day when you leave your house. How many people don't know that Teslas have security cameras on them, especially after it's been in the news pretty much every day for a month, that, gee, they caught another guy because the Tesla Sentry system saw him scratching the car or painting it or whatever, Oh, you don't know that? Why did CNN not tell you that? You're almighty, all-powerful, they know everything, CNN? Okay. And people keep getting arrested. Well, gee, I knew it was wrong, but, okay, you have freedom of speech. Now you face the consequences. Enjoy your jail time and enjoy writing the checks, because of everything that's going on, there needs to be serious punishment for these people. Not 2 weeks in jail or whatever. Not suspended sentence. You got to do a month's worth of weekends. I got to keep my job. I got to feed my kids. Oops. Should have thought about that before you did it. Protest is fine. You want to go stand in front of a Tesla dealership? Go ahead. You don't want to buy a Tesla? That's fine. No big deal. I don't want to buy a Tesla. I ain't protesting the company. I just don't like the vehicles. They're not practical for me. I don't buy Bud Light. I don't shop at Target. I don't shop at Tractor Supply. Why? Because I don't agree with their politics. That's my right, okay? But I'm not blowing up Tractor Supply stores or, hijacking Bud Light trucks on the road and throwing eggs at them or something. No, not doing that. I just doing what doesn't get me in trouble and doesn't support them. That's how you do it. Okay. That's not the liberal way of doing things. But it's going to get worse. And that's what we need to be ready for. Because, it started with the peaceful protests, then it turned into the mostly peaceful protests. Now it's turned into pure and plain violent protests. Let's spray paint cars. Let's break windows. Let's firebomb cars. Let's firebomb dealerships. Okay. What's going to happen when the first person is killed by one of these protesters who's believing all the crap they hear on CNN or from Hakeem Jeffries or everything? We're getting closer and closer and closer to violence. And it ain't going to be fun. I mean, I posted a joke on Twitter last night, after all this Tesla crap and identity politics. And I said, my truck identifies as a Tesla, even though it's a Ford. Okay. I said, try to key it. And I said, my AR is going to identify as a judge. That's where we're heading. There's going to be a situation where somebody's going to catch a guy keying his car, and he's not going to confront him with words. He's just going to put a bullet in the guy. Or we're going to have one of these cars or these dealerships firebombed, and somebody's going to die. And you add that to the inaction of what they're doing with these illegals, we're trying to, literally, Jamie Raskin was out yesterday demanding that we re-import all the Venezuelans and Salvadorans that we exported, that we deported. He's demanding we bring them back. Oh, okay. We don't worry about the victims. Let's worry about the criminals. Eventually, when nothing gets done, if stuff like this stops, street justice, Old West justice, is what's going to start happening. We are getting more and more and more and more divided. And we've talked for years about balkanization. It's about time it seriously becomes a consideration. We can give up the West Coast. We can give up New England. Hell, we may give up Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan to Canada, too. Let Canada have all this. Instead of us taking over Canada, let's give Canada our wretched refuse. They seem to love liberalism so much, give it to them. And we can watch those current states collapse with Canada, and they can all sing Kumbaya together. Pinball out.